What is up, guys? My name is Chelsea. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm a certified yoga instructor, and so that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be doing some yoga. So what I'm going to be doing today is breaking down the vinyasa. Vinyasa is a very popular style of yoga these days. It's actually what I teach, but it's something that is used in class a lot, but is done incorrectly a lot. I notice as a teacher, a lot of my students, the poses in the vinyasa incorrectly, which can lead to different injuries and is just not good for the body. So what I want to do with this video is break down the poses in the vinyasa so you know exactly what you're supposed to look like, what to do, what not to do, different modifications to offer you. Because a lot of different injuries can be formed by doing the vinyasa incorrectly. So I will also make you aware of those injuries. But this is just really just to educate you, very beginner, on how to do your vinyasa. Let's get started. Get some music on, bump up the jams. Okay, so first what I'm gonna do is sort of like talk through the poses, and then I will physically show them to you with the cueing, and then we will just flow through it all together. So the first pose I want to start with in the vinyasa is plank pose. Plank pose is something that I see done incorrectly a lot. There's several different things that students do, which I will show you as well. So what I want to do first is to start off with the upper body. Place your hands in front of you, shoulder width distance, fingers spread wide so you can really press down through all 10 fingers. And you want to press down so much away from the mat that you create this protraction in the shoulder blades. So what protraction means is just the shoulder blades are spreading wide. They're moving away from one another. So what I see a lot of times is retraction in the shoulder blades, which means the shoulder blades are moving towards one another. So I'll kind of show you a side view of protraction versus retraction. So with protraction, I'm actually pressing away from the mat. You see this rounding in the upper back. You can feel the shoulder blades spread wide behind you. Retraction would be squeezing the shoulder blades so you're sinking into your shoulders. So protraction, press away, feel the shoulders spread wide. Retraction, shoulder squeeze behind you. So we want this protraction, this rounding in the upper back. So that's the first thing with the upper body, with the shoulders, is you want to feel the shoulder blades spread wide behind you, press down away from the mat. Next is your core. Oh yeah. So with the core, I like to use the analogy of almost like you're wearing a corset. So if you're wearing your corset, the core is squeezing tight, the ribs are wrapping in. So it just gets your whole core engaged here by saying, pretend like you're wearing a corset. So you really want to draw the navel back towards the spine, wrap the ribs in, draw the lower belly up and in. Your whole core is engaged. The next thing that we want to engage is our quadriceps. Our quadriceps are our thigh muscles. And you want to pull the thigh muscles back to the thigh bone so much that you feel your kneecaps lifting. So this quadricep engagement just helps to get you to realize that plank pose is a full body integrated pose. So you have the shoulders involved, you're using the arms, you have the whole core involved, and you're even using your legs. So it's a full body engagement pose, and I'll go ahead and show you a couple of things that I see incorrect, and then I'll show you a couple different modifications. Start with your hands shoulder width distance, fingers spread wide, and then step the right foot back, step the left foot back. So this is the difference between protraction and retraction. Protraction, you can see my upper back rounding. Retraction, sinking into the shoulders, shoulder blades moving towards one another. So again, we want this protraction pressing away from the mat. We want the shoulders over the wrists, so not too far past the wrist and not too far behind. Right over the wrist. Another thing I see that's incorrect is students dropping the hips. The hips are down here. You want to make sure and engage the core so much, keep the hips lifted in line with the shoulders. Another thing I see is the hips, almost like the hips are a little bit too high. No hips up here, ladies and gents. We want them booties down in line with the shoulders. And the quadricep feeling is going to be a feeling that you have to do on your own, but just feel like your kneecaps are lifting here. You want to feel the quadriceps pull back to the thigh bone. So in this plank pose, if this becomes too much on your wrists, you lower down to your forearms. Modification, making sure to keep the hips in line with the shoulders, not up here, not down here, right in line with the shoulders. Another modification, if you're still working on gaining that upper body strength, you can drop the knees. You can just start here, and you won't have to bear all the weight of your lower body to hold you up. So that's plank pose, making sure that the shoulders are engaged, the core is engaged, and the quads are engaged. So that takes us into our next pose, Chaturanga Dandasana. Chaturanga Dandasana is Sanskrit for high to low push-up, and it's also one of the most common poses that I see done incorrectly. There are a couple injuries that can be caused with doing Chaturanga Dandasana incorrectly. You can cause some shoulder damage and some lower back damage. So I'll tell you a little bit more later on about what can cause those kinds of things. So a few things with Chaturanga Dandasana that I see done incorrectly. First, I'll just show you sitting here because it's easy to demonstrate with the arms. And I want to go through a little exercise. So the biggest thing I see done incorrectly with Chaturanga Dandasana is from plank pose, you have your hands shoulder width distance, people bending the elbows out to the side. This is not a chest push-up. This is a tricep push-up. The back of the arm is what you're using to lower down. So we're engaging the tricep muscles, not the pecs. So this is a little exercise that I want to go through for you that will help improve your chaturanga just in terms of form. Or I'll face to the side so you can see from the side view. Take your arms out like you're in plank pose, shoulder width distance, fingers spread wide. And as if we're lowering down into chaturanga, bend the elbows, draw them in towards the ribs until they come directly underneath your shoulders. So again, from plank pose, draw the elbows in, keep the elbows in tight towards the ribs until they're directly underneath your shoulder. So this is the exact alignment that you should have in your Chaturanga Dandasana. My shoulder is over my elbow's in line with my wrist. So we're creating a complete 90-degree angle here in our arms. So as you can see, up here is the same thing as if I'm down here. You want to make sure the elbows are locked into the ribs, not out to the sides. We want everything in one line. Once we get down to that 90-degree angle, everything is in line with one another. So that's one of the biggest things, is the arms is one of the biggest things that I see done incorrectly. Another thing that I see done incorrectly is a lot of students lose that full body engagement as they lower down into chaturanga. So plank, your entire body is engaged, and you don't lose that when you lower down. You want to make sure your entire body is engaged so you lower down as one piece. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate for you a couple incorrect ways, and then I'll show you correct ways and modifications. So first, come into your plank pose, step the right foot back and the left foot back. Inhale, shift the weight forward. This time, shoulders come past the wrist, high on the tippy toes. As you exhale, lower down halfway, Chaturanga Dandasana. So my shoulders are in line with my elbows, core is in tight. Now I'll show you what I do not want to see and what is incorrect. From plank pose, inhale, shift the weight forward. Exhale, lower down halfway. The hips drop first. That is the number one thing that I see done incorrectly, is the hips lower down before everything else. And that's how I know that students aren't engaging their core or engaging their quadriceps anymore. When you lose that muscle engagement in the legs and the core, your hips will drop first because there's nothing really holding them up. One injury that can be caused by doing that is lower back pain, because then you're dropping the hips, dumping all the way into your lower back, into that lower lumbar spine, and not supporting it by engaging your core. So you just want to be a little bit careful with that, and that's where I suggest modifying by dropping your knees. By dropping your knees, you're able to build that upper body strength, so then once you get the arms correct and the form correct in the arms, then you'll gain the strength to be able to hold that lower half of your body up. So let me show you again here. This is incorrect. Inhale, shift the weight forward. Exhale, lower down halfway. So you see, as I drop my hips, I automatically dump into my lower back. So if you come into your plank pose, you drop the knees, then you can lower down halfway, chaturanga, keep the form in the arms, still engaging your core. Please save yourself from the lower back pain. Save yourself from the trip to the doctor. We don't want to have to create patterns of doing things incorrectly, because then our body's going to get used to it, and that's where the injury comes from. When you're doing things constantly incorrect, and over time it's just damaging the joint. So that's just one thing. So it's okay to modify. That's how you start, by modifying, and you build up from there. So just know that if you're one of those people that drop your hips first, or you feel like you're kind of pushing it a little bit, it feels funny back in my lower back, then drop your knees. That's how you know. Second thing I see wrong, from chaturanga. Inhale, shift the weight forward. Exhale, lower down halfway, chaturanga. From just doing that, I already feel my shoulder, I feel pain in my shoulder. That's not a good thing. A lot of students like to rush through their chaturangas, and rather than hold that 90-degree angle, their elbows are coming way too far back behind their ribs, so the shoulder is now in front of the elbow. This is going to cause tears to the rotator cuff, a lot of shoulder tension, pain. So you want to make sure you keep that 90-degree angle. You keep the elbows locked into the ribs. Don't let them go past the ribs, because then once our shoulder gets in front, we're affecting our shoulder joint. So just be mindful of that as well. And again, that's where dropping the knees comes into play, because if you drop the knees, then you can work on getting the form correctly in the upper body. And then once you decide to lift the knees off the ground, then you'll be doing it perfect. Try the modifications, get the form correct first, and then move on. So just a few different things that I encourage newer students to do is drop the knees in their chaturanga so they can gain that upper body strength. Okay, so next, upward facing dog. So the biggest thing I see in lifted cobra and upward facing dog is the shoulders shrugging up to the ears. It's going to cause some neck pain and neck tension by constantly shrinking the shoulders up to the ears. So you want to make sure the hands are pressing down into the mat to move the shoulders down and away from the ears, down the back. So I'll show you a few times what not to do and then what to do. So from plank. On our inhale, shift the weight forward. Exhale, lower down halfway, chaturanga. Inhale, untuck your toes. Pull the pelvis forward through the hands. Lifted cobra. Shoulders down and away from the ears. Elbows locked into the ribs. So you want to make sure, again, from that chaturanga, you keep the elbows locked into the ribs. Press down into the hands. Press down into the tops of the feet. Press away from the mat, pull the heart out. Upward facing dog, this same exact thing. Press to all 10 toenails, making sure the shoulders are down and away from the ears. So we don't want the shoulders shrugging up towards the ears. You want to press away from the mat, shoulders down the back, pull the heart forward. Press so much into the tops of the feet that the thighs are lifted, keep the core engaged. Exhale, downward facing dog. So the modification for upward facing dog would be lifted cobra. For lifted cobra, you keep your legs down on the ground. Upward facing dog, the thighs are lifted. So you're pressing a little bit more into the hands in your upward facing dog to hover the thighs off of the ground. I'm telling you. So for downward facing dog, it'd be a little bit better just to show you while I'm in it to demonstrate, so that you can get a better visual. Make sure the fingertips are spread wide here. So just like in our plank pose, we want to spread the fingertips wide, root down through the knuckle pads, and actively press away from the mat to shift the hips towards the back of the ring. So if you're like me and you have tight hamstrings, your heels might be off of the ground, and that's okay. Make sure and bend the knees so that we can maintain a long, flat spine. What a lot of people do is they try to straighten the legs rather than bend the knees. And what we want to do here is create a flat spine. So if I try to straighten my legs here, I'm rounding my upper back. So by bending the knees, I'm able to get my chest towards my thighs, maintaining a long, flat spine. So that's just one thing that I see done incorrectly. You want to make sure if you do have tight hamstrings, you have a strong bend in your knees, keep that spine nice and long. Another thing I see done incorrectly is the stance for downward dog is really short. So you're in this like baby V. We want to be on a nice little big V here, a little baby V. So the best way to gauge your stance in your downward facing dog is just shift the weight forward to plank pose. If your shoulders don't come directly over your wrists, you should probably widen your stance. So as you can see from this stance, I just have to go a little bit to get my shoulders over my wrists. So this person would need to step all the way back and then shift their hips back. And again, if their heels don't touch the ground, that's okay, but just make sure to keep a bend in your knees. So again, you want to press down through all 10 fingers. Make sure the shoulders are away from the ears. You want to wrap the triceps in, biceps up towards the ceiling. Keep a nice long flat spine as you press the hips towards the back of the ring, press the inner thighs towards the back of the ring. You want a nice long spine here. And you want to try and work the heels down towards the ground. Eventually you'll get there. You just have to gain that flexibility in the calves and the hamstrings. But again, it's okay to keep that soft bend in your knees. Press the hips towards the back of the ring. So we're going to go through it all together with the modification first, and then I'll flow through full vinyasa. Okay. Now shift the weight forward. Exhale, drop the knees. Lower the chest, chaturanga, shoulders in line with the elbows. Inhale, pull the pelvis through, elbows locked into the ribs, pressing into all 10 toenails, lifted cobra. Shoulders down and away from the ears. Exhale, tuck the toes, downward facing dog. Inhale, shift the weight forward, plank. Exhale, lower down halfway, chaturanga, core engage, elbows sweep the ribs, shoulders in line with the elbows. Inhale, upward facing dog, press into all 10 toenails, pull the pelvis through the hands, pull the heart forward and up, keep the thighs lifted. Exhale, tuck the toes, lift the hips, downward facing dog. You can stay in your downward dog for 3 to 5 breaths. I know this is a little beginner friendly, but I really hope that it was helpful for those of you yogis who are just starting out, who are just trying to get used to a vinyasa, who to break down the different poses, exactly what to do, what not to do, and just to give you some modifications to try on your own. Well, I wish you the best of luck, yogis. I hope you like this video. If you do, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more yoga and fitness videos from me, click subscribe. You can also follow my Instagram, Chelsea Emily Fit, if you want to see more from me and my personal journey, all that good stuff. Thanks, guys. Namaste.